Keanu Reeves. A name synonymous with fame, mystery, and quiet strength. Millions admire him for his roles, his humility, and his tragic past, but behind the camera flashes and movie premieres lives a man who walks the tightrope between loss and hope. He never chases the spotlight, it just finds him. And yet, it's in the quiet moments, when the red carpets are rolled away and the crowds have gone, that Keanu becomes fully human. That night, under the cold shimmer of Hollywood lights, Keanu wandered alone. It wasn't unusual for him to retreat from fame. He often found solace in stillness. But this night felt different. The wind carried something eerie, almost expectant. No film crew. No cameras. Just the echo of his own footsteps. If someone had told him that a simple whisper from a strange girl would change everything, he would have laughed it off. But that's how the most unexpected journeys begin, without warning, without logic. Just a whisper. And the unraveling of a soul waiting to heal. Keanu had a tradition. Every year, on the same day, at the same hour, he visited a tiny cafe tucked between old brick buildings. It wasn't glamorous or trendy. It was quiet, forgotten by most. Just the way he liked it. And every year, he chose the same table. The one near the window, with a view of the rain trickling down the glass. And every year, he left one chair empty. No one ever asked why. Maybe they didn't need to. The sadness in his eyes said more than words ever could. He sat in silence, sipping black coffee, lost in thought. The memories played like old film reels, scenes of laughter, loss, and the love he could never quite let go of. The world knew about Jennifer Syme, his partner, and the tragedy they endured. But there were deeper wounds, private pains never shared in interviews. That's when he saw her. A young girl, small and pale, standing just a few feet away. She wasn't scared. She wasn't shy. Her eyes held a strange knowing. And then, without hesitation, she walked right up to him. She didn't ask for an autograph. She didn't seem impressed by the man sitting before her. She simply leaned in, her tiny voice slicing through the quiet hum of the cafe. And she whispered 3 haunting words. "She forgives you." Time stopped. The coffee cup froze in Keanu's hand. His breath caught in his throat. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. But the girl was already stepping back, her gaze calm, as if her message had been delivered. She didn't repeat herself. She didn't need to. Keanu's hands trembled. Forgiveness? From whom? From Jennifer? From the baby they'd lost? From someone else? His mind raced. He looked up again, but she was gone. Vanished. Like a ghost evaporating into mist. It was impossible. And yet, it wasn't. Because deep down, Keanu had carried guilt for years. Guilt no one knew the full extent of. And now, a stranger had spoken the one thing his heart longed and feared to hear. Keanu jumped from his seat, knocking over his coffee. The warmth that touched his hand couldn't compete with the cold now flooding his chest. He ran outside. The street was mostly empty, the rain now a soft drizzle. He looked left. Then right. No trace of her. No footsteps. No voice. No shadow. As if she had never existed. He turned in circles, disoriented. For a moment, he questioned his own sanity. Maybe it was grief, maybe he was imagining things. But something told him this was real. The whisper. the feeling in his chest, the storm of memories suddenly erupting. He returned to the cafe, shaken. The waitress gave him a towel, clearly unaware of what had just happened. "You okay, Mr. Reeves?" she asked gently. He didn't answer. Because how do you explain a ghost? A girl who seemed to know the deepest, most unspoken truth of your soul? That whisper played over and over in his mind. She forgives you. But why now? After all these years? What had Keanu been seeking forgiveness for? The world knew pieces of the puzzle: his stillborn daughter, the car accident that took Jennifer's life, the silence he wrapped himself in afterward. But there were parts even his closest friends never heard. He blamed himself for being away, for being caught in the machinery of Hollywood, for the arguments that happened right before everything fell apart. He had dreams, haunting dreams, of what might have been. A life with a family. A child with dark eyes and her mother's laughter. Jennifer smiling in the kitchen, music playing in the background. But those dreams were ghosts. And he kept them buried deep. Until now. Now that a mysterious girl had whispered words that cracked open a wound he had sealed tight with time and distraction. Forgiveness. It was something he hadn't dared to seek. Because it meant admitting he had failed. That night, Keanu sat in silence. No music. No television. Just the quiet hum of the city beyond his apartment windows. The whisper kept echoing in his ears, like it had left a mark in his very soul. Then came something stranger. He heard the voice again. Not in the room. Not outside. But within him. She forgives you. It wasn't the girl's voice anymore. It was Jennifer's. That soft, soulful tone he hadn't heard in over 2 decades. He stood up, heart pounding. "Jennifer," he whispered. Of course, no one answered. But deep down, something shifted. Like a weight had moved ever so slightly inside him. He reached into the back of his closet and pulled out a box. A sealed memory. He hadn't touched it in years. Inside were letters, ones he never sent. Some to Jennifer. Some to the baby they lost. His eyes welled up. Maybe this was the beginning of something. Not madness. But healing. Days passed. Keanu searched for the girl. Quietly, without alarming anyone. No media attention. Just walking the same street, visiting the same cafe. Each day, hoping she'd return. And then, on the 7th day, she did. Same place. Same quiet steps. She was sitting on the bench across the street, watching him with calm, steady eyes. This time, Keanu didn't hesitate. He crossed over and sat beside her. "You said something to me," he began. "Something impossible." She nodded. "I know." "Who are you?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked up at the sky. "You've been carrying pain that isn't yours to keep." Keanu's eyes widened. How could she know that? "You think you failed her," the girl continued. "But love doesn't fail. Fear does. Guilt does. But not love." She turned to him. "She wants you to forgive yourself." Keanu asked, "Are you real?" The girl smiled. "Does it matter?" It did. But he said nothing. There was something about her, something ancient in her eyes. Not creepy. Not supernatural. Just deeply knowing. As though her soul had lived 1,000 lives. "Why me?" he asked. She paused, then said, "Because you loved without expecting anything in return. That's rare. That's powerful. And that's what broke you." Keanu was speechless. His whole life, he had been admired for his kindness. But deep down, he often felt like he was just holding himself together. The girl stood up. "Don't wait for signs anymore," she said. "You are the sign. Start living like it." Then, she turned and walked away, disappearing around the corner. This time, Keanu didn't chase her. He didn't have to. The message had been received. That night, Keanu didn't dream of loss. For the first time in years, he dreamed of light. Jennifer's laughter echoed softly, and their child, never born, ran through fields of wildflowers under a golden sky. It wasn't sad. It wasn't painful. It was peace. He woke up with tears on his face. But they weren't the kind that drowned him. They were gentle, like a stream that finally found its path again. As the sun rose over the city, Keanu stood by the window and felt something shift. Not in the world, but in him. The pain hadn't disappeared. But now, it had somewhere to go. Somewhere to be released. Grief had been his shadow for so long, he'd forgotten what it was like to feel sunlight. That strange girl hadn't just whispered forgiveness, she'd unlocked something buried deep inside him. Something sacred. That afternoon, Keanu returned to the old memory box. Inside, among the photos and faded cards, he found a letter he had written 20 years ago, addressed to Jennifer. The handwriting was uneven, rushed, desperate. He had never mailed it. Never had the courage. He read it aloud for the first time, voice cracking. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I didn't hold you tighter. I wish I could have traded places with you." He paused, took a deep breath, then added a final line at the bottom. "But I know now, you never blamed me. And maybe, just maybe, I can forgive myself too." Then he folded the letter and walked outside. No grand gestures. No camera crews. Just a man saying goodbye to guilt. He placed the letter in the wind, letting it go, like ashes. Watching it lift and vanish into the sky. Weeks passed. Keanu went back to the cafe, not out of obsession, but tradition. He'd sit quietly, sipping coffee, watching the world go by. He didn't expect her to return. And yet, she did. But this time, she wasn't alone. A woman stood beside her. Older, warm, graceful. The girl smiled and said, "This is my mother. She used to know your friend." Keanu's heart skipped. The woman gently introduced herself. "She and Jennifer went to college together," she said softly. "She wanted to meet you. She's heard the stories. And she dreams of her." The moment felt surreal. Two worlds colliding. Two souls somehow tethered across time. The woman handed him a small pendant. "Jennifer gave me this a long time ago. I think it's yours now." It was a simple charm, a symbol of rebirth. A month later, Keanu was at a charity event. Lights, cameras, fans, everything he usually avoided. But tonight, he was different. Lighter. Calmer. When he walked on stage to speak, the crowd fell silent. He didn't read from a script. He simply spoke from the heart. We all carry pain, loss, regret. And sometimes the hardest thing to do is forgive ourselves. But I've learned that healing doesn't happen in grand gestures. It starts with a whisper, a quiet message from somewhere unexpected. The crowd listened, truly listened. Some cried. Some just nodded. Keanu had spent years giving to others. Now, he was finally giving something to himself, the permission to feel whole again. One morning, Keanu returned to the same bench where it all began. The girl wasn't there. Not this time. But he didn't feel disappointment. Just gratitude. He sat down, hands in his lap, watching the people pass by. He thought about how fragile life was, how mysterious love could be, and how healing never comes all at once, but in pieces, in whispers, in tiny miracles. That girl, whoever she was, had offered him a gift that no fame, no fortune ever could, the courage to let go. He looked up at the sky. A single white feather drifted down, landing softly on the bench beside him. He smiled. In the years that followed, Keanu never saw the girl again. But every so often, he'd hear those words, on the breeze, in a dream, in a moment of silence. She forgives you. And each time, the words meant something new. At first, they were about Jennifer. Then, about his childhood. About friends he'd lost. Mistakes he'd made. Eventually, they were about himself. Forgiveness wasn't an event. It was a journey. One that he was still on. But now, he walked with lighter steps. And when fans stopped him on the street, when strangers poured their hearts out to him, he listened, not with pity, but with knowing. Because he understood. Sometimes, all we need is a whisper. Years later, an interviewer asked him, "What's the most important thing someone ever said to you?" Keanu smiled, thought for a moment, then replied, "It wasn't what she said. It was what it gave me. She gave me myself back." And maybe that's what the strange girl really was, not an angel, not a ghost, not even a mystery to be solved. Maybe she was a reminder that even the most broken hearts can begin again. So if you ever find yourself drowning in guilt, haunted by the past, and waiting for a sign, listen closely. Because sometimes healing starts with just one sentence. Just one whisper.